In December this year, it'll be the 250th anniversary of Ludwig van Beethoven's birthday. After watching Nathaniel Drew attempt Da Vinci's daily routine,
Oh, God.
and then subsequently listening to the audiobook of Mason Curry's daily rituals, I wanted to find an iconic musician whose daily routine I could imitate for my own creative benefit, and Beethoven seemed pretty effective. While we are all in lockdown, I realised I had no more excuses to execute this challenge I wanted to set for myself, and literally no plans, so I could completely immerse myself in someone else's day. I've been my own boss for just over a year now, and I've struggled to create habits when my schedule has been totally unpredictable. Can't even really remember what happened today. No 2 days were the same. I put a spell on you. And now we're all experiencing the complete opposite. Every day is Groundhog Day.
To the groundhog.
Isolating for way over a month now has led me through a weird journey. Struggling to find focus and flow when you're worried about the health of family and friends and, well, the world is only natural. However, I still need to get work done. So I thought it'd be good to structure my day in a far more practical way than I've ever done before. Find a rhythm and really stick to it. So first, a little bit of history. Beethoven was a German composer and pianist, born in 1770, and he died in 1827 at the age of 56. He's an iconic figure in Western music, known for his colossal symphonies, stunning piano sonatas, and devout choral works. You'll definitely recognise the first movement of the Fifth Symphony. Fur-Elise. And the Moonlight Sonata. To name a few. His lifetime oversaw the change from the classical to romantic era, and he was one of, if not the first composer to establish a freelance career. He refused to be subservient to aristocratic patrons and allowed the role of the musician to go from being deemed a servant to adored rock star. He studied with other legendary musical figures like Haydn as well as Mozart, who is supposed to have said, "One day Beethoven will make the world talk of him." And here we are 250 years later. He overcame serious tragedies like the death of his mother at just 17, his father's alcoholism, the death of his brother Caspar to tuberculosis. He lived through the Napoleonic Wars, and in 1802 he realised that his hearing loss was declining severely and going to become total deafness. In a letter he wrote about thoughts of suicide, but chose to continue living for and through his music. In 1806 Beethoven wrote a note to himself on a musical sketch: "Let your deafness no longer be a secret, even in art." We often remember the greatness, but it's hard to comprehend how resilient he had to be to create the masterpieces still performed today. His deafness didn't prevent him from composing, but the isolation and depression he experienced did contribute to long periods of creative inactivity. However, he was celebrated in his lifetime, and when he passed away, it's reported that up to 20,000 people attended his funeral procession. So now on to his actual routine and how I put it into practice. Beethoven rose at dawn and started working early. For breakfast, he'd have coffee, and thankfully I'm a caffeine fanatic, but he counted out a specific number of beans, 60 to be exact, one by one, every day. At first, I thought this was quite a large amount until I realised it equates to 1 cup, one very small cup of coffee. He then sat at his desk and worked until 2 to 3 p.m, taking a break every so often to walk outside, which allegedly helped his creative flow. Instead of going outside during this working time, I have been sitting on my balcony and trying to add a bit of meditation into my day, which I'm terrible at. And instead of practicing the art of doing nothing, it's often when I get distracted by an idea, which actually for Beethoven was the whole idea. However, talking of meditation, Beethoven had a rather strange habit that would have definitely annoyed the neighbours. Anton Schindler, his pupil and secretary, mentioned in the biography Beethoven, as I knew him, that he would stand at his washstand and pour large pitchers of water over his hands, bellowing up and down the scale or hum loudly to himself. He would then pace around his room with rolling or staring eyes and jot something down. and then continue pouring water over himself and singing loudly. He'd then have lunch with a drink, and after that he embarked on a seriously long, brisk walk, which would occupy the rest of the afternoon. He'd always take a pencil and a couple of sheets of music paper with him, just in case an idea crossed his mind. I'm taking this time to do my daily exercise during the lockdown, so I'm mixing it up each day with a different workout, either going for a walk, run, cycle, or HIIT workout. If you haven't joined in on Proof of Sweat over on Instagram, you totally should. Here in England, we are still allowed to exercise outside, and I promise I'm practicing social distancing during the infrequent times I am near someone else. As the day moved into the evening, Beethoven would stop at the pub to read the newspaper. Then he might spend time with his friends at the theatre, although in winter he preferred to stay home and read. So right now, that's the option I'm going to have to take. For supper, he'd eat something simple and light, like a bowl of soup, and luckily for me, he enjoyed wine with his food. He also liked to have a glass of beer and a pipe after supper. I'll take the beer, but I don't smoke. Now, I've always seen myself as a night owl. I've always found myself working on music and videos late into the evening, but by reversing my day, I've definitely been more productive more consistently, and by starting earlier, it's meant I've been able to relax better in the evenings and make important time for video calls with family and friends. Beethoven rarely worked on music in the evenings and retired to bed early, 10 p.m. at the latest. That's pretty early for me, but makes sense when you're rising at 5:30 a.m. So what has this taught me? This wasn't an exercise in becoming Beethoven. He is obviously one of the greatest musical icons to have ever lived, a child prodigy turned prolific virtuoso who truly suffered in so many ways. However, it felt good to replicate something that worked for him. Early starts and daily exercise isn't exactly uncommon, though, in successful people. Learning and working more like Beethoven made me realise that there is ultimately nothing but process, so you better start enjoying it. To be creative and constantly improve on yourself, you need discipline and routine. You need to show up and do the work. However, it ebbs and flows, shown by his periods of creative dormancy, so in those moments, you probably need to forgive yourself and let your mind rest. I liked his separation of a working environment and thinking environment, i.e. his walking time. Even being mindful and allowing yourself time to wind down in the evenings will help avoid procrastination. If I allow for that time away from my workspace, it'll provide more clarity on the project, and also it's made me feel less guilty about taking a break. Instead of the term deliberate practice, it's more like deliberate rest. Also, I've been more methodical about taking note of my thoughts and ideas. The reason we know so much about Beethoven's life is because of his extensive detailed journal entries. He also communicated via writing in conversation books due to his hearing loss. My notes may not be fascinating to others in centuries to come, but they will benefit me. I want to continue the early mornings. I was sleepy at my desk, but I was pretty productive because I didn't really need to think about what I was doing. I just had to finish the work I'd started the day before. It's a good way to warm into creative work. Knowing I had to be in bed at a certain time allowed me to wind down my day more naturally, rather than go to bed with my brain still busy and worrying. I didn't work past 7 p.m. Having time in the evening helped me define the next day's tasks, create a more effective to-do list, and prioritise. I had something to read if I had been writing, something to listen to if I'd been demoing a new song, and something to edit if I'd filmed. It kicked my day off way better. I won't be counting my coffee beans every day. The novelty wore off immediately, and I sadly do need more than 1 cup of coffee a day. But I understand why he wanted to monitor his caffeine consumption. By keeping to the same amount each day, combined with a routine diet, it allows for consistency in your energy levels and mental state, which will fuel your artistic output. It also limits your decision making. It's a bit like Steve Jobs wearing the same thing every day. It's just less to think about. In summary, I want to continue to wake up early and get to work, take healthy, mindful breaks, allow time for daydreaming, dreaming up mad ideas, and then unwind in the evenings. Simple, really. Thank you for checking out this video. Be sure to check out my beginner guitar course in the links below. Subscribe to my channel and let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters who you will see the names of in the credits. If you want your name in the credits, then check out the link below. But otherwise, I'll see you soon.